:30 p.m. Item 1A, Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Item 1B, approval of agenda items/items for discussion.
I move that the agenda for the September 16th regular meeting be approved.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Shaw. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Gogolewski?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel?
Yes.
I'm a yes. That motion passes. Item 1C, consent agenda.
I move that the consent agenda for the September 16th, 2024 regular meeting be approved.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mr. Costa. Any discussion on item 1C, consent agenda?
Board, can I ask you to add one name to the recognition of tenure? Rachel Patterson, inadvertently left her off. Rachel Patterson. Thank you.
Any concerns with the modify of item 3 on 1C, the modification? Hearing none. Mr. Gogolewski?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That motion passes. Item 1D, Superintendent's report.
Thank you. Just to remind the public, November, we will be voting on a countywide special ed millage. The countywide special ed millage, I've presented information to all of our families a couple of times now. There's also a LESA website. This is a LESA run election. However, it benefits all of the schools in Livingston County. For Heartland specifically, back in 2015, it did not pass. However, it passed across the county. Therefore, we have realized the gains from the special ed millage. Some people have asked if it's for special education services for students, how does it impact a general ed student? Well, the reality is this is about $1.8 million that we have to provide the services at a certain level for our special needs students, which they deserve to be educated. They deserve a free and appropriate education. And so we would have to pull that money from general ed funds in order to supplement it if it does not get renewed. And it's a renewal, and it's also an increase of a little bit of money to bring it back to whole based on the Headley override. So please look for that information. Please know that when you go to the polls, as always, it's a school election. It'll be the last thing you vote on, basically, because under the law, school issues are last on the ballot. And please consider that our special ed students deserve a well-rounded education like all of us do. So just wanted to touch on that real quick. Rachel, do I need to add anything?
No, you did a great job. But if you do go to our website, there is a link that will right on the homepage that will take you to the LESA provided website for all the detailed information about the ballot proposal. So,
Mrs., where are you at? Come on up. Come on up. So this is Amy Zabo. She is one of our high school teachers. You've seen her before on extended trips, summer trips. She's here in this part of the agenda to give us a quick summary of their trip to Panama that the board approved.
Yes.
So.
Hello, everyone. Very excited to tell you all about our trip that you graciously approved, and the kids were very, very excited about. So I wanted to go ahead and begin. We started our trip here in June, bright and early at 3 a.m. at the airport. And we had 35 students attend. They were mostly going to be 11th grade, going to be 12th grade, and then recent graduates. So we had a nice group. All of them had had at least 3 years of Spanish experience. So we met here at DTW and connected in Miami, where of course we had a big storm, but we made it. And then finally we ended up making it to Panama, and there was our travel shirt. We all were in our 35 shirts there. When in Panama, we had all different types of discovering to do. One of the things about Panama was learning about the history and architecture. So we were able to go to the Panama Viejo, which is the old city. You can kind of see in this picture here. And also you can see the new. So you can see the old and the new, how they kind of combine together. We were able to even see some of this modern architecture in their biodiversity museum too. Speaking of biodiversity, one of the highlights of the trip, well, so many to talk about, but the photos that I have represented here were the students in the bottom left here. They were doing their snorkeling in a reef. Up on the other pictures, we actually went to a farm, a pineapple farm, and the kids were able to actually eat the produce right from the ground, like right from the tree, and it was seconds old before they were able to taste it. Here again is the Biodiversity Museum, so the kids can understand how important Panama is to the habitats of that region. One of the best things about the trip is the language portion of the trip, and you can see in the middle picture here, we were having a lunch and one of the restaurant owner's children came up and was showing us his toys, and so the kids really liked interacting with him. But we also had, I think, which was probably the best day, and one of the things we love about EF was where the students actually were given $20 each. They were broken into groups, and they actually had to use the $20 to buy a meal for a family of 4, a typical Panamanian meal. And then at the end, when they had all these fresh ingredients from the market, they had to gift it to someone. And that was such a huge giving forward thing, and it was all in Spanish. And just watching the kids be so excited about it, and then watching the reaction of the people who they gifted the food to was really overwhelming, and the kids really loved that so much. So as the leader of the group, it was just a check plus for me. One of the things also, we think of Panama, you don't really think about the folklore there. You know, we have our folklore and our traditions here, but the kids actually got to experience it firsthand. Like, girls were put into dresses, they got their hair done, and they were all learning a traditional dance. Even the guys got to participate as well. And that was a really neat thing that I wasn't even expecting. So the kids really, all of a sudden, all the girls start going getting their hair done. They were very excited about that. This, of course, a seventh marvel of the modern world, the Panama Canal. That was a really lovely place to be, right there in Miraflores, to see the ships coming through. We actually saw a few ships passing through the locks. We saw them working, and we got to see the huge IMAX presentation, Morgan Freeman telling us all about it. So it was just a fantastic opportunity for the kids to see the new. This is the old locks in the front, and then they had the brand new locks in the back because the ships are so much bigger anymore. This day was a special day. We actually took the children to an indigenous village, and this indigenous group, the way they make their money is by tourism, and they actually invite tourists in, and they feed us an amazing lunch of tilapia, plantain. You can see the fresh fruit. All these items around are the tapestries that are made by them. This is their only income, and we were able to interact with them, and you could only get to them by long canoe, so that was really cool. Of course, while we were there, the sports had to break out, so they actually did a big soccer match beforehand, but right here you can see they were kind of doing a little afterward, playing a little basketball. And so you can see our kids, and then one of the indigenous men in their traditional outfit too. And at the end, when we wrapped it up, the great thing is we're together, which seems like a short period, 7 days, but the things that these kids are put into that they have to navigate really just binds them as a group. And so that's what we loved about this experience. The kids become so close, they know each other so well. And then you can see right here on the right, we had our awards for the kids that really were outstanding in so many different ways. We got to recognize them. And then, of course, right here in the front was Gabriel. We couldn't have done our trip without the excellent tour guide right from Panama. You could tell he loved his country, and it really rubbed off on the kids. It was genuine, and so his love for his country rubbed off on them, and it made them love it too. So it was just an overall just wonderful, wonderful opportunity and experience for the kids. So we want to say thank you so much to all of you guys for that. France and Spain's coming this summer. Kids are super excited about that. And I'll be seeing a little bit later in the day today. Our next trip, I got something for you. Think about it. Galapagos Islands. Don't say no. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, next we have curriculum. It's Curriculums Month. So Dave, I believe you have two things to share with us tonight, STEM and assessment scores, if I'm not mistaken.
I do, thank you. I'll have Mr. Anderson, Mr. Costello, and Ms. McFarland come up. Chris is our farm STEM teacher. If you remember last year, I had the elementary STEM presentation, and last year we added farms in middle school to that trajectory towards high school. And Chris has done an unbelievable job at 5th and 6th grade STEM, but I'm going to have him talk about his program.
All right, thank you, Dave. So last year was our inaugural year with the 5th and 6th grade STEM. So we rolled out with the Sphero Bolt robots, coding, wind-up toys activities, and simple machines. And then so the 5th graders last year, to change it up for them this year as 6th graders, we've added an extra twist to the Sphero robot racing track where they'll have to add a load and get that around the track without losing their, is it? Usually I don't need these. Oh, is that better? All right. And so, no, we were excited, weren't we? So this year, the 6th graders then will have to add a load, a carriage to carry the rocks around the racetrack. So what we do, here we go. So teamwork is essentially the most important thing with this. When students come into STEM early on, there's always that bad habit of wanting to just hurry up through things. So I really want to focus on them about coming into class, getting into a team. I let them choose their team. We're 100% always in a team. And then we focus on the STEM learner's mantra, which is, I may not know the answer, but I know that together we can figure it out. So one of the things I added this year was a 5th grade and 6th grade Teamwork Students of the Month, where I'm observing. I'm not like these 3 boys here. They were just doing this so well, working together, coding, talking, making changes, and it was fantastic to see that. Problem solving fits right in with team working, communication, patience. There's frustrations. There's try again, keeping notes, not changing our notes, as far as erasing, and staying positive works with all the activities. And here you can see with the girls doing the cup, they have to, on the very first day of STEM, I have them work together. And in these activities, they can't always talk, and they can sometimes only use one hand, and they've got to stack the cups up into different shapes. Wind-up toys is a lot of fun. The students get a bunch of wind-up toys, they look at them, they get to dissect them, they get to do research with them, wind them up, and see how far they will go. So again, we're using that research, collecting data, there's math involved in there. And then when they're all done working with the wind-up toys, then they'll create their own wind-up toy racer. And so I think by last year, some of the students had the wind-up racers, which is a spool, rubber band, a pencil, a washer, they had, I think the record was about 60 feet, which was pretty cool. Simple machines, like the Sphero robots, I try to break it into kind of sections. So they start off with looking at 3D instructions and creating simple machines that way. Then they'll look at pictures, as you can see there with the buildings, and try to design and create that building based off a picture. And then we get into creating our own designs. Often they like to make elevators, windmills are the favorite, or combining a couple different simple machines is a lot of fun as well. And then probably the highlight is the coating, the Sphero bolt. We start with a simple one-block coating, which is we roll out some putt-putts. So they have a couple different putt-putts they're coating, again, working together, coating, giving each other an opportunity. And then we go into the mini racetrack, which you'll see a short video here in a second. And I think the thing that I'm most proud of the kids is they'll come up to me. Sometimes there'll be an individual from a team, they'll have a question, and I just guide them back to their team, get them to work together, make sure everybody gets that chance to communicate, make sure they're listening to each other. And then 99% of the time, they end up solving the problem without me having to solve the problem for them. So it's really cool to see that. And then the coding competitions. If you know me, I love to compete. I think that's it's a great way to get kids involved in school. So anytime we can compete, we were competing today with the mini race tracks. That's the thing where it can be kind of funny because I have to hurry them along, especially the fifth graders. It's like, if you want to race, we got to hurry up. So sometimes I got to put them on a clock. So I've got a short little video here that I'll share with you. It's going to go quick. It's about 10 seconds. And they're always excited, so there you go.
So I just want to add on to, this is just Chris's second year in the STEM position, and the kids loved him so much, they would they'd come into school early to get into his classroom. They wanted to skip lunch to be in his classroom. Like, they won't leave him alone. He had a cadet teacher last year who was a senior, and he would stand in the middle of the racetrack coding his own robot, and you'd have to ask him to move out of the way. But he was so excited because he's like, I've never experienced anything like this. And so he was just beside himself, and just like, he was no longer helping teach. He was like, became one of the kids. And he was like, where was this when I was here? So it's just been, Chris has been absolutely phenomenal. We've let him kind of just take his own way, given him a little guidance, and the kids are just beyond excited to be with him.
I want to thank Annette and Colin too, because they oversee that whole STEM, starting at the elementary level and working their way up. They've been an integral part in this whole STEM program as we're moving it forward. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the ramifications of that, of STEM with science and math in a second. But thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
And real quick, I know that it's been published, the MLive published a bunch of data about a different way of data, and I want to explain some of that. Typically, when we get our scores back from our state assessments, they only come back in silos. So you have third grade ELA, fifth grade science, 10th grade math, and everything we look at is in grade level and content within that grade level. And we're always looking to see how we're doing in those individual silos, and then we kind of try to piece together how is the district doing on a big picture basis. And we make some guesses on that and how we did collectively over all these bits of data. And what the MLive data did was it gave us for the first time data across the entire district, scaffolding from third grade all the way up through high school, and in each content area. So we can look at ELA, the entire district. They took all of this proficiency scores of all the kids from third grade all the way up through 10th grade, and then they put them all together and they came up with a proficiency percentage. And they did it for all the districts in the state. So that's what that data was from. We had never seen data like this before, so it was a pleasant surprise about how we did as an entire district, because this is a health check of our curriculum and instruction and our scaffolding. That's how I took it, is how well do we do it from third to fourth to fifth and blend it together. It takes a lot of people for us to do this. It's about collaboration, relationships. The teachers do a phenomenal job. The principals do a great job of leading all that, from the instructional coaches. We can't have that kind of data success without everybody on board when we work. So just to recap that a little bit, in ELA, there's 539 school districts in the state of Michigan. In ELA, we were ranked 16th. That's top 3%. In math, we were ranked 17 out of 539. That's top 3. In science, we were ranked 2nd in the state. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have STEM now. We have instructional coaches working with our teachers. Our teachers are collaborating at a higher level. All those things together finished 2nd, top 1%. In social studies, we were ranked 4th in the state. That's top 1%. And then they took all of the content areas across every grade level and testing area, and we were 12th, ranked 12th as a school district overall. So we're really proud of that data, and it just shows the culture, at least to me, the culture that we have here, the collaboration culture, and how we scaffold really, really well with our instruction. We have a lot of room to grow. We have a lot of kids we still want to move up, but when you see it compared to districts on a big scale like that, it verifies a lot of the work that we're doing. So I wanted to put that into context what that data means.
Dave, thank you. And again, the board has heard us talk often that you can pull all kinds of data. You can pull all kinds of information and try to compare district to district, and it's just comparing apples to oranges. When it comes to state assessment scores, it is what it is. Every district is engaging in the same assessments that our students are engaging in, and our students performed at a level that puts us in the top 2% of all the school districts in the state of Michigan. We should all be extremely proud of that, and that is from top to bottom. Every single employee in this school district makes this happen, creating environments that kids can learn in, making sure they're clean, making sure we're feeding them, making sure we're transporting them. Everything that everybody does is so essential to us being able to say our school district has students performing in the top 2% of every school, public school district in the state of Michigan. If we can't celebrate that, I'm not sure what we can celebrate, to be honest with you. That's pretty darn awesome. So just wanted to thank everybody for everything they do. So thank you, and thank you, Dave, and your team as well. Lastly, a bond update. There's really not a lot to talk about. We're wrapping up some projects and getting ready for bids to come in for some other projects for next summer, right, Matt? So Matt's not going to come up. We'll just leave it at that. So ends the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Item 1E, call to the public. Again, this is just a reminder to those in the audience that you must present yourself in a civil manner with due respect for the dignity and privacy of others who may be affected by your comments. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes at the 2-minute and 30-second mark. I will wave my yellow folder just to give you a heads up that you have 30 seconds left. At the 3-minute mark, you will be asked to step down from the podium. Please do not interrupt any speakers. Any of those folks who choose to interrupt can excuse themselves from the meeting. Jason Wolford.
Good evening. Glad to be here. Appreciate each of you. Yeah. I'm Jason Wolford, and I'm speaking tonight regarding the contract or the potential contract with the Department of Justice. This is just a friendly reminder to each of you tonight that we're a constitutional republic, a government in which sovereign power is exercised by the representatives elected by the people. We are constantly being told that we're a democracy when in fact we're a constitutional republic. Therefore, we must look at our Constitution for the decisions that we make as leaders, both here and around the United States. Unfortunately, I believe that we're being believed to or told that we should be a democracy. And unfortunately, I believe that we're almost living in a totalitarian oligarchy democracy, which is very concerning. A few days ago, I spoke on a panel and I was asked what the greatest threat to our system of law was, and I responded, the administration state. We are run by three branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial. Not the made-up admin state, which is being pushed on all of us to be the fourth branch that doesn't exist. I believe tonight, as you discuss reviewing a contract with the Department of Justice, that you would vote no, as we are seeing an overreach of our government. We witnessed an overreach just a few years ago in our state and many others during COVID. When our governor was held to the Constitution, she declared a state of emergency and shifted powers unconstitutionally to the Department of Health and Human Services, therefore allowing our government to decide who could go to church, who should live, who was essential, and what businesses could stay open. I mentioned to say that we have a few people voted for a school board to represent us. We did not vote for the Department of Justice to make decisions for our children. And I can see already, all of us have seen the weaponization in our country of the FBI and the Department of Justice and others like them. So I'll say this again and again, that the power belongs to the parents. The power belongs to those that we elected. Therefore, I encourage you tonight as a board to vote down this continued relationship with the Department of Justice. Each of you have been elected and or getting paid to do a job, and I'm asking you to do that and not shift that to the Department of Justice. I would hope that the school lawyer, the representation for our school district, has counseled you in the area and has reminded you of our constitutional freedoms and not allow the infiltration of the Department of Justice over the lives of our children, our families, our school district, and those are rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And for those of you in leadership and or on the board that may be scared of being bullied, I'm asking for you, for the sake of those that have come before us, like our forefathers who gathered in Independence Hall 248 years ago and declared themselves to be free, that you do the same thing. Also, for the lives that have been taken or given for the sake of our freedom, I ask you to stand up for the people. Lastly, the government is not our God. The government is not our physician. The government is not the parent to our children. Vote no on the extension or the furtherment of this agreement.
Mr. Wolford, please wrap it up.
Thank you. I didn't see, I'm wrapping it up. Thank you. Lastly, I just want to remind you that the Department of Justice people do not live in Heartland. They live in DC, and a majority of them send their kids to private school. Thank you for your time tonight. Thank you.
Tiffany Baird.
Good evening. I'm Tiffany Baird and the Vice President of the PTO at Farms Intermediate School. And I want to address two significant concerns regarding the use of PTO funds in our district. First, there's been a recent request by an appointed board member to use PTO funds for an art walk. While an art walk might be a great community event, directing PTO funds as prize money for a handful of students is not fair to all of the other students these funds are intended to serve. Our PTO funds are raised by parents and students specifically to support our school's educational needs and to enhance student experiences with things like assemblies, lock-ins, Kona Ice, field day, and popcorn. Asking us to redirect these funds to an external program undermines the trust parents place in us to support their own children and our school directly. Furthermore, using PTO funds for external programs could jeopardize our tax-exempt status, which is critical for our continued operation. Second, I need to discuss the issue of Chromebooks. I understand that there was a decision years ago that we did not need one device per student, but Chromebooks have now become essential as textbooks for classroom instruction and M-STEP testing. These basic educational resources should be covered by the school district's budget, not by PTO funds. Some PTOs are struggling financially, and it is not fair to rely on them for essential resources, especially when not every PTO can contribute equally. According to Chuck, the 2020 bond program allocated $6.5 million for technology replacements and upgrades. This bond money is what should be going towards the Chromebooks, or it should be coming out of the district's general fund. PTOs should not be forced to carry the burden of the district's inability to properly fund these essential educational tools. I strongly urge the board to reconsider how we handle the funding for the Chromebooks and other requests for PTO funds. If parents and supporters within the community find out that their money is going towards items that the district should be funding, they will be less willing to donate to the PTOs in the future. Bottom line, art prize money and Chromebooks are not an appropriate use for PTO funds. I am asking the school board to find a better way to pay for essential resources, either using bond money or the district's general fund. Thank you.
Julie Tucker.
Hi. I just first want to thank you all for being up here. It's a huge commitment, and I appreciate your dedication to our school district. I'm Julie Tucker. I'm proud to be running for the Board of Education. A lot of people know me, but a little bit about me. I do have 3 daughters in our school district who I'm very proud of. I'm a wife of 20 years as of next week, and I'm also an independent business owner. And as a business owner, I know the importance of communication. I know the importance of budgeting. As a realtor, I also know the importance that a school district has on our property value. And I also know that a school has a huge impact on bringing families into our community. And these will be things that are very important to me as a future board member. As a candidate, I am honored and proud to be endorsed by our Heartland teachers. Our teachers are our foundation of our school district, and it's essential that a board and our board communicates with our teachers, understands what their needs are, supports them, and gives them the tools that they need in order to make our students most successful as possible. I'm also a very proud parent in this school district, and our students' success does start at home. Similar to the roles of our teachers, it's important that us parents communicate with our teachers. We know what our students are doing. We have those relationships. We have those respectful conversations. How we communicate and respect others is a direct reflection of how our students and our children are going to respect and behave others. As a board member, I will not be bringing any of my Republican agenda to the board. It is a nonpartisan position, and I will be bringing the values that are important to our students, to their education, to their future, to their safety, to our community. A few things that I've done in our community. I have started a scholarship called Because of You. It's a gratitude scholarship that gives students the opportunity to give thanks and appreciation to a teacher, an admin, a coach, somebody who's been impactful. I think it's extremely important that we teach our children how to be grateful and give appreciation. I've also funded and started several fundraisers for our school district, one being next month, a 5K for the basketball team, so participate in that. I've volunteered coached for several years, and last year I successfully brought the homecoming parade back to our school district, and that is really what I wanted to talk to today. We have our next meeting is next Thursday. I'm so proud that this has moved into the hands of the students. It's important that in order for the parade to be successful, it has to be student-based. And this is also teaching our students the importance of community involvement, teaching them leadership. So save the date for Friday, October 11th, 5 p.m. Roads will be closed at 4:30. Come support the high school, the students, their programs, their clubs, their sports, and it's a great way that we're bringing the community and the students together. Thank you.
Jeff Scott.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Scott. I have 3 children in the Heartland District, and I am running for Heartland School Board this November. I wanted to speak on both of the action items on tonight's agenda. First, as far as the superintendent contract extension goes, I do want to point out that the superintendent already has a 3-year contract, which is the same as all the other administrators, and longer than anyone else in the district as far as I know. So I do expect tonight during your discussion to hear why extending that contract would benefit the citizens, the students, and the parents of this community. Also, and even more disturbing, is the fact that you've asked to put that on the agenda as an action item, but refused to provide a copy of the contract that you refused to sign. So how can you extend a contract that you refuse to disclose to the community? Second, and most importantly, I wanted to address the DOJ agreement. I do appreciate that someone took a few minutes to put together an FAQ on the agreement, something that I suggested you do with the last one, but was met with a firm refusal. The obvious question, though, is why don't you post this on the website and on social media and make it available to all parents and all citizens rather than just the few people that come to these meetings? My single largest problem with the agreement is the fact that this district has still blatantly refused to pass any policies or procedures that address how such an agreement will be implemented and what the effect is on the students. Will parents be notified when their students are referred to the DOJ? What are the long-term ramifications of that? Will parents be able to review the DEI curriculum that they're teaching in the classroom? Is there an opt-out for parents who don't want their children taught this? Will Heartland create a page on its website that keeps parents updated on how this is going, what's being spent, how it's impacting the community? And are you going to fill this vacant DEI czar position, which is budgeted at over $200,000 a year to the taxpayer, in an environment where plummeting enrollment is affecting budgeting? And we had another member of the community mention the school couldn't even afford Chromebooks, and we've budgeted $200,000 for a DEI czar? You can't find these answers in the agreement. They're your responsibility to answer through the policies which you set. What happens from here? Well, I hope it's not the same thing it's been for the last 2 years. Refusal to answer question, refusal to be transparent, refusal to communicate in any meaningful way. I'm going to leave you with a few reminders of your ethical responsibility to this community in your own bylaws. One is to put the educational welfare of students first. Students. Number two is to make policy only after a discussion at this public board meeting. Some of you have sat here for years and refused to have any meaningful discussion whatsoever. Furthermore, your own bylaws dictate that you shall maintain two-way communication with the citizens in this district. So I hope moving forward, you can start living up to this.
Ella Nikitin. Ella Nikitin.
Hi, my name is Ella Nikitin. I have lived in Heartland Township since 2005. For those that don't know yet, I am going to be on the ballot this November for 4th District County Commissioner. So the reason I'm here is I want to, remind everyone that I believe that public transportation is very important, and it's very important in that it benefits everyone, not just some people, but it benefits everyone. So for those that don't know, the MTA up in Flint, they have spent the last 20 years about on and off trying to get their buses into Heartland, trying to ask various businesses. They've all said no. I believe that everyone should support public transit regardless of politics. So why am I here right now at a school board meeting? So it has come to my attention that some people in this room may be going to Flint tomorrow. This is actually a really great opportunity because, I work in Flint and I take public transit up to Flint. I think for those that are going to be going to Flint tomorrow, I think there's a really good opportunity to try out the public transit infrastructure that we have right now. There is no bus stop in Heartland yet, but there is one in Fenton, Howell, and Brighton. So, you know, if you are interested in incorporating public transit into your trip to Flint tomorrow, please talk to me. Thank you.
Barbara Tonkovich.
Thank you once again for letting me speak. Just two quick comments before I pray. Convictions should be in all aspects of life, family, church, business, without being ashamed of those convictions. You shouldn't change from whether you're on the board, whether you're at home, they should be the same. And also, politics is policy, and that's what we all have to live under, so we do talk politics. Okay, in God's Word, it's Romans 1:18 through 20. For God does not overlook sin, and the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who in their wickedness suppress and stifle the truth. Because that which is known about God is evident within them in their inner consciousness, for God made it evident to them. For ever since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through his workmanship, all his creation, the wonderful things that he has made, so that they who fail to believe and trust in him are without excuse and without defense. Father God, I have asked that you would prepare hearts to hear your word and that they would accept them. Because we know from the foundation of the world, you knew that Adam and Eve, your first creation, which was very good, you said, would fall because of the free will that we're given. And that rebellion, which is sin, has come upon everyone. But you gave us a solution. You sent your son, Jesus, to come in the flesh, to experience everything that we have experienced. And that through his sacrifice, taking your wrath that this word talks about onto himself at the cross, that those who believe in him, accept the gift, the free gift of what he has done in his flesh to suffer for us, that they would believe and come to a saving knowledge, and that by his resurrection from the dead, we too will be resurrected to either heaven or to hell. In Jesus' name, thank you.
Moving on to item 1E, committee and building reports. Mr. Gowaleski, you want to kick us off?
Yes, thank you. I will be making appointments later this week to visit Legacy and the Community Center, and I'm looking forward to that, starting off the year, working with those two centers. And much like probably everyone else is going to do, I want to give a big congrats to Heartland for their M-STEP scores. Great job. And one thing we need to do, as much as we need to congratulate the students for their achievements, and we must do more for that, I want to congratulate the teachers of those students by facilitating that level of academic achievement. And last but not least, I think it's extremely important to congratulate the parents who have made education a top priority with their kids. Good job to all. I also hope we can use these results as sort of a springboard to brag about the district as a place of academic achievement and put somewhat a little less focus on our district as sort of an interventionist district, which is fine. And by no means is that meant as a message to not be proud of those achievements as well, but to really focus in on the fact that we are a district of academic achievement. And then I also want to say sorry to my counterparts, John Connolly in Brighton and Jason Bedford and Howell, for not having the scores we do. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gugulewski. Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you. A couple weeks ago, Mrs. Brisky and Mr. Urick at Farms made some time for me, which was great. It's always nice to be able to sit down and sort of hear what's going on in the building. And not that we don't miss Mrs. Cheney, but I know Mrs. Brisky is very enthused and is bringing some new ideas to the building. It's always good to see excitement. And I'm sure that excitement, just knowing Mrs. Brisky's personality, I'm sure will not wane throughout the year. It'll still be there the last day of school. So I look forward to meeting with them monthly. I know next month we're planning on doing a tour of the STEM Center. So I'm happy to see that. Hopefully they don't ask me to do anything other than just observe, but such a great program. I'm so happy that we offer that to our students. And I know later in the meeting today, we will be talking about all of the board goals for 2024-25. Building and Site is one of the committees that I was on, and I know, thank you, Mr. Hughes, to you and your team that came up with some goals for this year. I think the thing that I am most proud of when it comes to Building and Site is the secure education consultant that we had come in a few years ago that identified a lot of areas where we could make improvements in securing our buildings and making things as safe as possible, and that list is almost complete. So excited to see that. And then the other committee that I serve on is the Personnel Committee. And I know that, based on some conversations we had during that committee, that there will be a lot of work done this year to address some of the concerns and some of the things that we want to see when it comes to the personnel in our district. So, and though all of these, I know will be on our website eventually and will be talked about later. And so I don't want to rehash every bullet point here, but thank you again to the personnel team that came up with some goals and took the time to meet with us as well. So that's it for me.
Thanks. Mrs. Coleman?
Sure, thank you. Echoing what Glenn said, it was pretty exciting to see the numbers that we had been speculating about and had talked to Chuck and Dave about. It was nice to see those published and to be able to share that great news with the community. It's really super exciting, and a big congratulations to all the teachers and staff, the students, of course, for all their hard work. It's great to see that. Let's see, I sat in on 3 committee meetings since our last meeting, and obviously the focus in those discussions was primarily on the goals that are on the agenda tonight. All the draft recommendations that each of the teams brought forward, I sat in on the Personnel Committee, Building a Site, and Curriculum as well. And I also sat in on the Senior Center Advisory Council meeting at the beginning of the month. Chuck also joined that meeting to talk a little bit about the LESA Special Education Millage, which was great. That's a great group to get that information in front of, since they're a little bit further removed from the schools. Their 50th anniversary celebration is coming up on the 25th, and I believe tickets are still available if anyone is interested in attending. The open house, and they had a free week of fun at the beginning of the month. They were very successful. There's a pickleball tournament on November 8th through the 10th, which is usually a hot commodity. And Kroger is actually doing a presentation to explain to the members how to use their digital coupons and their app. and they're providing lunch. Space is limited, and it's this week on the 19th, but I thought that was a fabulous idea since all coupons seem to be moving to digital, and that's the perfect target market to hit with that training. So let's see, and then quickly, I had the pleasure of meeting with Misty Gunn, our new principal at Creekside this morning. Creekside is one of the buildings that I've been assigned to, so I had a great time chatting with her, getting out on the playground for a little bit, and chatting with some of the teachers. So I'm looking forward to those monthly meetings with her, and I will have the pleasure of meeting with Dottie over at Round on Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keller?
Okay, thank you. I also had the chance to sit in a couple of committee meetings this past month, the Personnel Committee, Health and Safety, as well as the Finance Committee. Not to belabor things that have been said, but I thought it was very good discussion by the team, and good job to Chuck and the admin team for what I thought were some additional, more objective metrics that were added, which I felt were needed. And I'll just note for the board here on the Finance Committee, I'll say the highlight is, if we want to hit the 15% fund balance, we got to make sure we don't get overly zealous with projects. So keep that in mind on the unplanned expenditures. But I'm confident that Rachel will be able to make sure everything's in order, and we'll hit those goals. So. With respect to the building reports, I had the privilege of meeting with Mr. Howerton and Mr. Shanavir this past week, and it was a great visit. I also was able to meet with Deputy King, so previous schools have been part of our Fortis team, so getting to interact with our local sheriff's office was a great interaction for me. Some of the highlights, there's a lot, so I'll try to keep it brief, but we had some very successful boys and girls cross-country teams that did very well this past week. Boys and girls both finished first at the Holly Invitational, so congratulations on that, and also beat Novi on September the 11th. We had several students who received the HMS Awesomeness Awards, which I had to learn what the Awesomeness Award was. I can imagine what it might be, but just to kind of give you some highlights, it wants to recognize students who had shown great work ethic, some leadership skills, or just in general a good positive influence on some of the others. And so those students' names were Rowan Fry, Jaden Hendrickson, Danny DeHaron, I apologize if I get that name pronounced wrong, Colby Rice, Kennedy Krieger, Aubrey Sukas, Braden Houghton, and keep up the good work to everybody. Next is interesting, in Mr. Jellison's science class, they had an opportunity to learn about the life cycle of super monarch butterflies, and so they were able to go and release these off in their migratory insect, and so then essentially they have a 9-month lifespan, and then the students from the University of Kansas will actually go to Mexico and see which ones end up there. So it's kind of a neat project that the team worked on. Highlighting on some of the STEM, they had a Lego hopper prototype race that they were involved in, so I think much like Mr. Anderson at Farms, the kids are loving that. While I was there, we actually had 20 different cadet teachers that were visiting. I think it was from 11th grade and higher, so that was neat to see them kind of jump through the different classrooms. I think there was 8 different ones in total. We had the new student breakfast for any students that are new to the district, so thank you for Counselors McLennan and Hanson for running that. And then I think last but not least, I want to kind of just acknowledge that the Heartland Middle School Student Council met, and wanted to thank Mrs. Smarch and Mr. Jellison for supporting that. That ends my report.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Mr. Costa?
Thanks, Mrs. Claybach. Like all my other board members up here, that we had several committees, and I figure we can talk about that when we get to that portion. I thought it was, like Mr. Keller said, some good conversation. In regards to the high school, I did have a great conversation with Mr. Fitzgerald, and I've got some points here. He mentioned the Freshman Link program got off to a great start. Those freshmen met with their link leaders before school as well as the first couple weeks. I thought they're transitioning well. College application week is coming up for the first week, and he went on to explain how it's not just college that the counselors are helping them navigate. It's applying for military or trade schools or apprenticeships or the workforce. So that's coming up in October. And then lastly, Mrs. Tucker kind of stole my thunder a little bit about the homecoming. But it is a big week coming up on October 11th. They've got the parade at 5, the game at 7, and then the dance is on the 12th. So with that, I'm all set.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. Mrs. Blondeel.
Yeah, congratulations to the school district for the great scores. That is an amazing thing because I know we needed to bounce back from COVID, and it's definitely a great bounce back. I have not been to see Mrs. Frazier at Lakes yet, but I will be making an appointment. And as Chris stated, we did have committee meetings that we'll be discussing what the goals are, and that's coming up. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Blondeel. Very quickly for my report, I get to visit Village multiple times a week. And so just a couple of things that are going on there. They just had their big mom sale. Many of the elementary schools, obviously in our district, had that. And so that was their main fundraiser, but their large fundraiser for the fall will be their Hedgehog Hustle, which is kicking off next month. So if you know a kiddo that goes to Village or have a kiddo that goes to Village, I'm sure they'll be getting their videos out to ask you for donations in their Hedgehog Hustle. That's the biggest fundraiser that they have of the year. One plug I do want to make that many might not be aware of is much like the high school pantry that we have at the high school that Mrs. Shaw runs. There was parents that pulled together and actually started one at Village as well. And so they support several kids every single weekend through spring break, through the holidays. And so I did notice on Costco that there is Easy Mac is on sale. So if anyone wants to pick up an extra one and drop it off at Village or the high school, I'm sure that would be very much appreciated. My last plug would be for Adopt a Family. Many of you know, and I will say it till I'm blue in the face until Christmas time comes. We support roughly 400 students in our district through the holidays, and so that provides gifts for the children, a holiday meal, and then sustainable food items for those kiddos who might have food insecurities through that long winter break. If you're interested in adopting a family, donating, participating, running a drive with one of your sports or club teams, please let me know. It certainly takes a village to kick that off and make it a success. And I know that the students and families on the other end of it Christmas morning are really just thankful and really feel like our district has wrapped our arms around them. So more to come on that. That ends my report. Item 2A, DOJ monitoring agreement.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of District Council and the Board President, approves the Board President signing the DOJ monitoring agreement as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mr. Costa. Discussion?
Yes, I'd like to put in a few cents here. First, I think it's very important that we recognize that Mr. Hughes, Mrs. Gregory, and Mr. Minsker have done a very, very good job at working with the DOJ with past requirements, and I think they've done as best of a job as they could to this point within the confines of their job duties and legalities and such. And I do want to say thank you for those efforts. I really do. The board, if you recall in our last meeting, we met in private at the end of our meeting. And we met with our district, school district attorney, who was kind enough to answer questions that we had, and boy, did we have questions. And for those of you that have reviewed that board packet, you can see that you can turn just about every sentence into a question and ask why, how, when. There's tons of that in there. We asked a lot of questions. 3 of us did. And we got those questions answered. Unfortunately, some board members were upset that we were asking questions about something so complex and comprehensive. I'll let you figure out how that divided up. But we do have an issue here where the extension has no solid, real quantitative measurements other than recording maybe incidents, which can be very subjective in nature. The DOJ has already cost the district by not providing feedback when asked and then telling the district that the questionnaire that we sent out wasn't good enough. My concern is not with the administration of this district. I think they're doing a fine job in handling this mess. But my suspicion is with the DOJ. I have absolutely no faith in that organization whatsoever. I don't see any fine line of when we may or may not be good enough as a district. And there's too many questions that, although they were answered to the best of our attorney's ability, I think there's still a lot of questions out there. One of my main concerns is that they are now mandating that we work with a group called the Great Lakes Equity Center in developing some curriculum and some programs that are supposedly going to help our staff, our students. And if you check out the Great Lakes Equity Center, you will find just a world of CRT-type documents and resource materials. I am no fan of that, and I will not let that invade our district whatsoever. So.
We have a discussion to get through, so can you guys please, thank you. I want to give everyone else a chance to discuss as well.
I do have a comment too. So as Glenn said, I think our school district has done a great job thus far. I've looked at a lot of the evidence and things that I've asked about. And Jason Wolford said it best. This is a constitutional republic. I asked for feedback that none of this document or anything that we're doing would usurp any student, teacher, parent, administrator, anybody's constitutional rights. And I was not given confidence. While Travis tried, our lawyer tried, he did not provide us, and he couldn't, with anything that would go to the Supreme Court as far as the Constitution is concerned. We as a board signed an oath to the Constitution of the United States of America. I brought my own Bible. I put my hand on that. I raised my hand and said that with everything I am, I will protect everyone's constitutional rights. And I do not feel comfortable signing this kind of a contract because I do not think that everyone's constitutional rights are protected. So that's my statement. Thank you.
Any additional discussion before I go? I'll go last, that's fine.
Yeah, I'd like to just make a couple comments. Some of what I want to say is similar to, Mr. Gogolewski and Mrs. Blondeel, so I apologize for kind of repeating or being a broken record, but I think it's a very important issue and needs to be restated. And, again, I have a lot of confidence in our team to try to do the best with what's in front of them. So, I'll just say in advance, how I may vote tonight is not a reflection of my confidence or my trust in our team, including several of you that are sitting up here on this table. Instead, it's more a result of my conscience in terms of, whether or not I feel that this is something that is constitutional. And, at the end of the day, I think that potentially some of the countermeasures that they're wanting us to look at, like Great Lakes Equity Center, et cetera, if you go back just a few short years, and all of this is available on the Office of Civil Rights website, they've archived content that, in my mind, and again, it's not that the district wouldn't try to avoid this, but I feel that our hands may be tied. And again, in instituting some of this material, we would invite a Title VI violation while we're trying to work through and solve another problem. And I just don't think that that's a wise move. I think we're somewhat relying on the DOJ's own interpretation of the laws here. And, we just saw with the Supreme Court where they overturned the Chevron deference, which basically said, and I'm not an attorney, again, this is my opinion, that, you can't rely on an agency basically to provide its own interpretation of what the law does or does not mean. And so I think I'm very reluctant and skeptical about, basically just taking their interpretation as gospel. And, as Michelle stated, I swore an oath to the Constitution, and that means a lot to me. I urge all of you to dig deep and think about what it means to you, who you are up here trying to serve. I think all of us want what's best for the kids. We may not all agree on how to get there, but I do think, again, need to take a deeper look at what you think the community is imploring us to do tonight. So again, without getting into any further detail, I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Go ahead.
So I don't necessarily need to kind of rehash what the fellow other board members have said. The facts page that was provided in the packet does kind of speak for itself. So we've been put in this situation, again, in my opinion, where we need to come to some agreement with the DOJ. I know that Dave and Kate and Chuck and the team have worked for the last year to try to come up with the best we can do to show the DOJ we're going to finish this up and we're going to be done. Again, I think everything is in here to show that. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to be in this situation. We don't want to be here. Heartland's a phenomenal district. But the fact of the matter is they're here. So I think if you look through, I think we've done the best we can, meaning your team, to get this plan. So that's
Thank
all
you,
I have to
Mr.
say.
Costa. Any additional comments before I go?
I'm sorry. I thought you said no. I'll wait.
While I don't completely disagree with everything that Mr. Gogolewski or Mr. Keller or Mrs. Blondeel have said, I completely agree with what Mr. Costa said, that this is not a place that any of us wanted to be in. I don't think that the risk that we set ourselves up for regarding litigation, any lawsuits, anything that the DOJ would bring down on us if we don't enter or maintain some kind of agreement, I think that alone is a huge risk to the district as well. So it's just something else to consider, which I'm sure you all have, but I'm saying it out loud that that's a huge factor as well.
Do you want me to go, or do you want to go real quick?
Well, Robert's rule says you go, everybody goes, and then I can go again. So it's up to you.
You're good. Go ahead.
Okay. So I failed to say this, and I really wanted to, is that I do not agree with any bullying of any sort. This has nothing to do with that. Thank you. Has nothing to do with that. This has to do with the fact that parents at home, you need to tell your children, don't test the waters, because a lot of the things that I went over the incidents with Mr. Hughes today, and a lot of them seem to be testing waters. I don't think that anybody in this community, in my opinion, wants to teach your children to dislike another group of students for any reason, especially color or sexuality or anything like that. But parents, you really need to talk to your kids. I know you think they go to school and they've got your values, but once they get into school, they're out of your sight. I think that you need to have the discussion with them, tell them not to say anything to other kids that would delineate the two or, separate them from anyone else. And that's really all I had to say is parents, step up, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Blondeel. Is someone interrupting? First and foremost, I do want to thank the team. Ms. Blondeel, Ms. Coleman, and I actually, so in full transparency, this was not the original agreement that we were proposed with, and we did come to the table to negotiate with the DOJ, and so I do want to thank you for your efforts. And several people had given us questions and things like that to ask during that time. It was a very lengthy discussion, a very detailed discussion. And I'm proud of the ability for us to stick up for our district because I don't think any other district has. And that was very apparent in those discussions. And so kudos to the team who has taken it to the table and said this isn't right, or this is right, or we need movement here, we don't need movement here, we're comfortable with this, we're not comfortable with this, because those discussions were lengthy, they were hard, they were challenging. They were challenging when you're not an attorney. And so I think that I do want to, share my gratitude for those folks who are involved in this process and for those who continue to be involved in this process, ask questions of Kate, Dave, Chuck, because it's a very in-depth process. We had a member at Call to the Public ask several questions, and some of this I think we baked into our not our FAQ, handbook. But we will continue to, dependent whether or not a DOJ agreement exists or not, we will continue to follow our normal opt-out policy. We will continue to follow our normal notification policy when students are involved, and we will continue to, there was a third question on there. Let me look. Yes, we will continue to keep the district informed via various FAQs, letters out, whatever that may be, because I think that that's important. I think it's important to involve parents in this process. You need to know when your kids are not acting in a way that's conducive to a positive learning environment, and we need to take care of this at home. I understand that some of our students and some of our families don't have the support at home, but we as a community need to wrap our arms around those kiddos as well. And so I think that that's very important. Everyone at the table has obviously had a moment to shed light on where their head is in this, and I've had lengthy discussions with many of you at this table, probably one person in particular who her and I talk about it probably once a week, just on kind of going back and forth. And full transparency of where my head is we're in a position where we can control this, where we control what goes out, where we control what goes in. And quite frankly, I'm fearful to lose that control, because I think that to me is where you're might as well hand over the keys. And so I think that that's important for the community to understand, is that, this would be something that the DEI committee from a board level is tasked with monitoring, being involved in, where historically I don't think that connection has been made, or that level of board presence has been present. So I just want to be very transparent, and I'm happy to have any offline conversations on my own opinions, but think that it's worthwhile for the public to hear that as well, is that in this situation we still get to control things, and I don't know that we would be in that position in the future. Any additional discussion?
One last item. Regarding the threat of a lawsuit by the DOJ is not going to sue the district and put us out of business. The DOJ is going to sue us strictly for compliance. It will take months, maybe a year or more, before anything is ever initiated to the point where we have to worry about that. And I think in the interim, I think we can do a good enough job as a local school district in proving that we can control these kinds of situations. I really do. So I really don't have a fear of this lawsuit that, people are anticipating. I'm more fearful of lawsuits by parents of kids who are either wrongfully accused wrongfully accused of a crime they didn't commit or something of that nature. And I can tell you that one of the primary people that is involved with the whole reason why we're talking about this right now, there has been a lot of destruction in the lives of some of the people that were involved in that incident. And it's rather sickening. So I cannot, in good conscience, even remotely support this. So.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I guess just one other comment. I think I can appreciate some concern or consideration with the belief that we're able to sort of control the outcome, and I think that's commendable. But I guess I don't share that sentiment. I think ultimately we need to be up here and not make decisions based on fear of some other consequence. And frankly, just to close out, I find it somewhat ironic that, some of the tactics or concerns, essentially we're trying to, we're getting bullied and harassed into an agreement in attempt to solve harassment and bullying. I find it a little bit strange that that's what's happening, so.
Any additional discussion? All right.
I just want everyone to pay attention as to how this vote goes.
Mr. Gogolewski?
No.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
No.
Mrs. Blondeel?
No, I can't.
And I'm a yes, that motion passes. You can excuse yourself from the meeting. Thank you. Goodbye. 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 You can leave.
No, I'm not leaving.
Yep.
You've been elected. You have failed this community.
She's got to go.
No, kick her out.
Item 2B, Superintendent Contract.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Board President, approves extending the superintendent's contract through June 30th, 2028, based on the highly effective evaluation rating.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mr. Costa. Team, I did send you guys all an email. I want to be very clear that the contractual agreement in which I've been discussing is really not a package change. It's just structural changes of MCL appeal language. There is no longer a highly effective in our rating scale, and so it's things like that. But I did want to have this because whether or not we vote on this rollover, I'm just going to plug and play that term back into that new contract. Again, you guys can see it, you can compare it. No change in package, it's just the MCL language, the legal language around that. Any discussion?
Well, I think as we've talked before at the board table, the longevity of a superintendent matters, and not only just for Mr. Hughes, but for what we establish for the district moving forward, even past our time on the board. So I think it's important that we provide job security to a superintendent, which also provides security for our district and our community. So I think that Mr. Hughes, based on his highly effective rating over the years and what he's done for this district, extending his contract till 2028, I think is a easy decision for me.
Any additional questions?
I have a comment. So for me, we've heard several months of, teachers railing against us that we don't support them. And I'm looking at this contract saying teachers don't get this length of contract. And I think that for me, I would want everybody to have the same length of contract. And I have been steadfastly saying since I got on the board that I don't believe anybody deserves that long of a contract. So that's my opinion, and I'll vote the way that I need to vote.
I just have a comment. I have absolutely no problem with a 3-year contract. We have it for the teachers. We have it for the admin. I think that's more than adequate for the superintendent. And when you think about this, in the state of Michigan, excuse me?
Please leave. I'm done with the interruptions. You gotta go.
For the second time. In the state of Michigan, we elect representatives, state representatives, every 2 years. They're paid a little over $70,000, and they manage $82.5 billion in state programs, state monies, state investments. And they also do it for about 10 million people. Right now, we have about 5,300 students in the Heartland School District. We pay our superintendent a very fair wage. It's no secret or mystery that it's a 6-digit salary. It is, I don't think it would be a problem if we kept it at 3 years. I do not feel that we're in danger of losing our superintendent, and maybe I'm just talking and maybe I'm assuming something I shouldn't, but I don't think we're in danger of losing our superintendent with a 3-year contract. I don't even think Tom Brady ever got a 5-year deal when he played. I really don't. But when you take a look at the difference in, let's say, what a state rep has to do, what they make and what they can control, and what a superintendent does, that does not mean I am not for keeping a good superintendent. I do not think that filling a superintendent role, especially in a district like Heartland, is going to be a tough thing to do should there ever be a disappointment with the contract of 3 years. So therefore, that's why I can't go along with it.
Thank you, Mr. Gogolewski.
I just have a quick comment. I'm not, in no way do I need to be comparing us to Brighton, because clearly we outscored them on those tests.
Ouch.
Down the way, they have Dr. Outlaw, who just was given a 5-year contract, and you got to wonder, why are they doing this? And I think it comes down to stability. Like, I want my kids' teachers to be here. I want my kids' administrators to be here. And it starts at the top. Culture. I think culture is important here in Heartland. Mr. Hughes sets that tone. And quite frankly, it's clearly working. So to extend this out another year, I think is the right thing to do, because it promotes stability for our kids. And I think that's why we're all here. So I personally am absolutely for it.
I do just want to make sure you understand, Mr. Costa, and I'm sure you do, but this would be 4 and not 5, but I just want to make sure you understood this.
We're not doing that.
want to
But the
be
fact
sure
that
that's clear.
Brighton's throwing a 5-year extension at Mr. Outlaw, and we're asking to just put another year onto this. I think it's more than reasonable if what we're doing here works, and clearly it is working.
And Glenn, I hope they didn't sign a contract with Tom Brady for his announcing, because it's questionable.
I guess I want to add some comments as well. Thank you for sharing the contract this morning. Didn't have a lot of time to go through it, but I did want to ask some questions specific to the language in section 4A that it says we may do so by March 30th. So I'm trying to understand or make the connection between extending the contract that says it must be done between March 1 and March 30 through here we are, middle of September.
Yep.
So can you answer
And
the validity to that?
I actually got a piece on that, if you remember, several months ago from Thrun. And it might not have been several months. It might have been last year when we were determining what to do as next steps. And I can certainly forward that to you. That certainly, as long as Mr. Hughes is agreeable, we can do that extension. Again, this will be a plug and play. When you take a look at the new contract, it's all updated MCL. There's no, we didn't change salary, we didn't change any of that kind of stuff. It's really just getting it to current language.
Okay, and then I guess, the other thing that has kind of been touched on is, we've got a great administrative team, we've got great teachers, and they all get, a 3-year contract. And, I've heard, we need to look at the superintendent when we evaluate him, which is sort of a culmination of his team. And to me, it only seems equitable that we, all have the same 3-year contract. And so for me, given that we still have a 3-year contract, I think my inclination is that we would want to leave it within that, current status. And, I guess sort of in general, I think there's lots of other upcoming things for the district, right? We're talking about doing a strategic plan, which in theory, there could be different goals that sort of come out of that. And it feels like we're a little bit guilty of maybe not reading the room, asking, can we ask? Sure. But should we be asking? I guess I'd ask my fellow board members if we really should be considering this at this particular time. And, I guess I don't think Mr. Hughes is a flight risk. I've not ever received that feedback from him, but either directly or indirectly. I think he's shown his loyalty to the district, and I think, he would, I haven't asked him, so I won't ask him to ask the question, but I think he would be the first person to admit that, we're all Eagles and we should kind of all be on the same team. So again, my opinion is that we should leave the contract as is for now, and we look at things maybe in next year or January, February, March timeframe after we've had a chance to go through our strategic plan.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Any additional discussion? Again, we're only voting on this term. I just want everyone to be aware of that, and then the contract will be in your email, one-time plug and play. All right, sorry. Mr. Gogolewski?
No.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
No.
Mrs. Blondeel?
I'm a no.
And I'm a yes. That motion passes. You will have the final contract in your emails by next week. Item 3A, out-of-the-country trip for Ecuador. Is that Ecuador?
Ecuador, yep.
Okay.
Actually, the Galapagos Islands. So if I'd like to bring Amy up again and tell you a little bit, even shorter than her first presentation, just to say, here's what we're doing.
Amy, I do want to thank you for circling back, because a lot of times I think we support things as a district, but we don't ever see what the fruits of those labors are. So thank you so much for doing that.
No, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you entertaining my next big idea. So my goal is for the next 5 years to try to have a trip every summer. So the next thing on my list is to pitch a trip for Galapagos, which is a part of Ecuador, and that'd be for summer 2026. Like this summer, how we've combined the French and the Spanish together to kind of as a team. My idea was actually to combine the Spanish with AP biology. I thought it'd be a cool thing to try to capture another student group in the building and give them opportunities to travel and not just be so selective in regards to the Spanish trip. So requirements would be 3 years of Spanish. By the time the trip it goes in summer 2026, or completion of AP biology by that time. Yeah, I know Mr. Hughes said you all have the packet here. So same company, EF Tours. It'd be an 11-day trip, 35 students for one bus, which would be 5 adult chaperones, If response is over the top, EF says I can get a second bus with 55 students, and that would be 9 chaperones. So I'm just kind of keeping that in mind, not sure how it'll pan out with this other group of students who'll be able to travel. Some of the highlights the students can see, they'll be able to go to Quito, they'll be able to see the equatorial line. Then we'll also spend a majority of our time on the Galapagos, snorkeling, hiking, seeing the Charles Darwin Research Center, visiting the big tortoises, cloud forests, butterfly gardens. We'll be able to go to local markets, experience waterfalls. 4 of the islands specifically will be able to be explored. The cost of this trip is large. It's $5,200. So for that reason, I wanted to ask for you to look into it now and consider it, because I'd like to give the families 2 years to pay for this. And also, I have set up, as I have in the past, a informational meeting for October 1st, knowing full and well that you all will be debating and discussing the trip. And at this meeting, I would tell the parents that upon enrollment, upon school board approval, the trip will go. So they can enroll, but if you all decide that's not something for our school district, then EF would return any type of funds that were done and the trip would be canceled. So, but I wanted to let you know that I really want to go for this. I'm excited for all kinds of students to experience it. And I'll be holding this informational meeting October 1st, hoping for your blessing on the trip. Okay? Any questions?
Thank you for being willing to take this on. I would go on field trips to Greenfield Village, and I would have to take a day off of work to recover. So thank you for, spearheading this. I know it's a lot of work, and it's time away from your summer break. So thank you for providing these opportunities to our students. It's awesome.
Not a problem. They love it. It's worth it. Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Please.
Actually, I have a couple.
Sure.
This is the 3rd time since I've been on the school board that we've been asked about okaying a trip. And the last time it happened, I mentioned that I would really love to hear from the students and find out how it affected them. I don't care if they had a good time or bad time. That's irrelevant. I want to know just what kind of either inspiration or learning took place and how it affected them.
Okay.
And I would really like to see some of the students that have gone on some of these trips. And I hope we can do that. I am not against sending kids on these trips, especially if they're paying for them by themselves. But with that, I have to ask, how does the fee affect payment for the families of the kids, and who pays for the chaperones?
So EF Tours handles all the money. So I'm out of the money part of it. So the families can set up a monthly plan, or they can set up some type of an individual payment plan, whatever they want to do. They also have kind of like a GoFundMe style page where kids can send that out to friends and relatives to have support as donations as well, which I think is a really great tool. So all monies will be handled through that group. Chaperones, so the company, rather than hiring their own individual chaperones, it's a 6-to-1 ratio. So for every 6 students, a chaperone is paid for by the company. I would assume, business-wise, they're factoring those costs into the student price. So for each 6, a chaperone is paid. But there are some fees the chaperones do pay, for instance, their insurance, et cetera, like that. So they're not completely free, but they are definitely discounted.
Okay. By the way, your presentation earlier with the slideshow, that was great. That was fine. I think a nice little way to cap it off would be to hear from the students, and that's all I'm requesting.
Sure.
So other than that, I have no other concerns or what have you. So
We can do that.
Just one clarification. I want to confirm the cost of the event is actually 100% paid for by the parents. Is that correct?
Parents and students, and anyway, if If they wanted to fundraise in any way, shape, or form, they're more than welcome to do so. I stay out of all monetary parts of the trip. I just put it all together.
Okay, thank you.
Quite welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? All right, item 3C. Oh, sorry, 3B, 24-25 district goals. As many of you obviously have been participating in committees, and I know the committees that I've participated in, we've really been trying to be very objective when it comes to goals, and then we've been trying to match them with MyKIP, which is really important and was obviously a reflection as part of the MASB tool training, was to not obviously run parallel goals and not have opposing goals. So I do want to thank each of you because I think we've tweaked a couple of things. We've put some reality into the goals, Rachel, into our finance goal. I think we have to understand that Rachel can only meet that goal as long as we don't provide any type of large investment that we would go down to keep our fund balance healthy. And so I appreciate those conversations. I appreciate the conversations of risk. I appreciate the conversations around just really trying to be metric driven, which was a little bit new for some of these goals. And so thank you all for participating in that. The only one that I think might require some additional discussion after tonight is how our DEI committee leans into the work with the DOJ. And so I will follow up with members of that committee just to ensure that we have line of sight as to how each of you can lean in on that work, create structure and policy around some of that work, particularly around some of the questions that were raised tonight. Anything you guys want to call out in particular?
First of all, to agree with you, Megan, I am very happy to see now that we have actual quantifiable goals and sort of a metric-driven type system. And again, I thank Mr. Hughes and his team for coming up with those. That's very good. I think it adds a lot of confidence by the community, knowing that we actually have things that we can go off of, numbers. I was looking at the health and safety goal for HCS, the strategies continued, and then the assessment. And I had a question based on that third column of assessment for health and safety. And there's something here that I'm scratching my head. I would just like some clarification. And essentially, it's the last bullet, not the second to the last bullet in the assessment column. It says, compare the number of expulsion hearings with the previous year. The goal is to have less. The reason why that just struck me as something that just doesn't sit well, the final expulsion hearing goes before the board, and I can't recall ever having anything like that. I am not looking to expel more students, but I'm not looking to reduce the number of expulsion hearings if they're warranted, and that's what concerns me.
There was a lot of discussion on that, actually, and Chris and Greg, please chime in. We had a robust discussion on that in health and safety, and I think the point there wasn't necessarily to not appropriately follow our expectations of behavior, so on and so forth, but it was to try and identify early interventions on kids that might need it and take those early interventions prior to getting to an expulsion hearing. We know that the majority of those kiddos that actually make it to an expulsion hearing, whether or not whatever their parent decides is the next step for them, oftentimes it's a repeat offender. And so how do we get to that kiddo sooner? It wasn't necessarily to be lenient or lax on our structure. Guys, please chime in if I missed anything.
Yeah, that's why I was asking for clarification. I just wasn't sure of how that came about.
Yeah, I think originally there was a goal, but rather than, try to hold the team accountable for something that's a little bit outside their control, right? And we don't want to have a metric that may encourage people not to go through a process that's warranted. We felt, let's just move that to an assessment item as a stretch target. If we can have less, that would be great. But obviously, to your point, if it's warranted, we need to still follow through. So that's why we sort of moved it from a goal and are recommending that it be an assessment item.
Okay, yeah. That's the only thing that really struck my eye.
Yeah, thanks for letting us offer clarity, because I can understand if you're reading it, you're like,
Yeah.
are we going to be lax and not do what we say we're going to do? No. And maybe we can just even put a sentence of clarification, just indicating, structurally, it's meant to be early intervention and not a change in process or policy as we see today. All right. Any additional comments?
I was going to say maybe put that under strategies.
Just add it
Yeah.
to the, yeah. Sounds good. And thank you all for your participation in the committees. I know that, we have a pretty equitable split. Some of us are on the same committees together, so we get to challenge each other, but I enjoy the challenge of thought. And even challenging, our administration team, because it's good to have that outside viewpoint. And so thank you all for your participation in that. I heard that even the ones I didn't attend, obviously, were very well and structured and supportive. And I think some of those committees are going to become more robust over time, just given our circumstances within our district, where other committees are a little bit more capable of meeting on a quarterly basis and kind of not necessarily only when big financial decisions are made. Rachel. Item 3C, School Administrators Association Master Agreement.
So just make a note, Renee, this didn't make it on the other
I saw that, yeah.
extended agenda for some reason, but it should be 3C per the original agenda. So just make as a technical note. So yes, we've been working with, probably for almost a year now, if I'm not mistaken, I think about a year, talking with our administrators that are covered under the Heartland Consolidated School District Administrative Association. They petitioned the district to organize. They had the votes to organize. We sat down and began bargaining with them. Bargaining led to the document that sits in front of you today. You'll notice that it's been TA'd by myself and Tom Urich, who is their representative president. Went through all of these different components that they wanted to see captured into a master agreement. Obviously, once this master agreement is put into play, it would go on our transparency page as all the other master agreements exist there for anybody to see transparently. So this is a process, and bargaining is not always an easy process, and especially in this case, and we shared this with our team, and that is that what we're bargaining is a brand-new agreement. There's really nothing that you're bargaining. Like, really, the district is providing, is agreeing to capturing the language, right? So, but at the end of the day, it went really well. We felt really, really good, and I think their association would say the same thing, that we thought it was a really good process, and we're in a good place, and we think this is a fair agreement for the 3 years out for this group. So if there's any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Hughes, could you, I guess just for the members of the public, as well as maybe some other board members' benefit, is there anything that's sort of fundamentally different with the contract in front of us versus sort of how we operate as a team today? Can you touch on maybe some of those points that would be different than what we're doing already?
I don't think there's a lot of fundamental differences. I think the biggest difference is that the ability to bank unused sick and personal days. I arrived in the district back in 2000, and since then, administrators have never been able to bank sick or personal days that were not used. And remember, the motivation for banking days is if something happens in your family, that you can tap into those days for FMLA and for other things that you need to take care of. and there's never been those there. And what the district did is provide a, what we called a gap letter that said you could petition for up to 60 days to get you there if you needed it. But now they'll have an opportunity to bank the days, to build that bank, and then the motivation to bank it beyond the 60 days so that upon retirement, they could cash those days in. So I think that, and it motivates everybody to be at work and doing all the things that we have to do. So again, I think it's something both sides agreed was desperately needed. That's one big difference in here that you would see that's not in the others. There's some days that we've given, you know, a couple more days in there. I think there's 4 days in there that they wouldn't have to work, that the teachers don't work, that when the teachers weren't working and the students weren't in school, the administrators were having to come in. So those days will be given. There's 4 days there. Guarantee the first 2 Act of God days not having to come in, snow days or the building power down. Other than that, it's pretty much basically everything we've ever done and been doing.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Was there any discussion on a cap for bank days, or is that open-ended and it's unlimited, so, you know?
Yeah, it's open-ended, unlimited. The difference is that you can cash in up to 60 days upon retirement. So while you could bank 200 days, let's say you had 200 days banked and you had an FLA situation, you could potentially cash those days in to an FMLA, right? To take care of a spouse, to take care of a child, to take care of yourself. But now you're incentivizing trying to bank those so that you can have the more days you have available, the more comfortable you feel and say, in case something happens.
Thank you.
Obviously, if you have questions on this, spend the next 30 days to get your questions to Chuck. And if you want to understand more about how that bargaining process worked with those administrative representatives, I'm sure he'd be happy to share. This agreement actually leads us into needing to revise policy 1410 and 1410-01. And so, Mr. Hughes, do you want to review that?
Yeah, again, you've seen 1410 and 1410-01 many times because each year you have to revise it. Now remember that this has always covered non-representative units in or people in our district. So as we worked with the administrative unit to create that master agreement, I felt, this is me, and I did talk with Megan that I was going to do this, right, Megan? I think I let you know. I felt it was only fair that if this administrative group was getting these things in their master agreement, we should carry those over to the non-representative group that are not part of their association. And this just covers that. You can see where we've made sure that we're going to be moving to PTO days. There's another piece, Greg, I didn't talk about. Instead of calling them sick and personal days, you just have PTO days. That's pretty standard in industry. The bank days, the vacation day cash-in for 52-week employees. A 52-week employee getting a 2-day July 4th, it hasn't always been guaranteed. Just guarantee them a 2-day. So you can see that in here. Again, nothing that wouldn't be replicated from the master agreement that we are asking you to agree to.
Again, any questions on this policy, please get those to Mr. Hughes before the next meeting, because we will be voting on these both policies and obviously operationalizing that contract. Item 4A, future meeting, October 21st, 6:30, right here in the boardroom. And then item 4B, any informational items from any of you all?
I do, Megan. I want to add something. So I've got some thoughts I want to add as far as information for the public. So I wrote them down. Real quick here. It's important to mention there are an important election coming up regarding the special education millage and the school board. It's only 2 months away. So I urge the public, don't be complacent. Do your homework regarding the special education millage. Also do your homework regarding the candidates running. Back in March, the non-homestead millage renewal passed in this community. because the community did its homework. You guys took the time to disseminate facts versus misleading information, and I want to thank you for that. I urge you to do the homework again regarding to this upcoming election for our school board, again, in this education millage. I want to share with you some behaviors that local school district boards of educations have experienced when a couple of newly elected trustees came on board, and I feel it's important to hear it. Some of the tactics and behaviors that they've used for that district. Spreading misleading information about the district, not positive or supportive of public schools, not willing to engage in learning constructive dialogue, not willing to represent the best interests of the district, not willing to work collaboratively, not willing to listen to multiple perspectives, not willing to draw on reliable sources, not willing to have the best interests of the students, staff, family, and community, routinely opposing the district, routinely using procedures and complaints to drag out meetings, and trying to ground things to a halt where nothing is ever good enough. So with that, I urge you, the public, please do your homework in voting. Heartland's a great community. Our schools make our community. It's a place where people want to live. I, for one, am very proud of the schools and what they do for our kids. So please, please, please do your homework for this upcoming election.
So is that aimed at anyone here on the board, Mr. Costa?
This was directed to the public.
Okay.
Do their homework.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
I have one piece of information that there was some email traffic today between the board and a member of the public in regarding to some August changes in Title IX, and then the halts that was, or the stay order that was then disseminated. And so we have not made any changes in regards to that August transition, and I just want to be transparent about that. There's no sense in making changes until there's a final ruling on some of that. And there's also no sense in making changes for half of our district and not the other half. So we have chosen to kind of just stay steady until we understand more about where that might go in the future. All right. Item 5, adjournment. Thank you all for your time.